Good morning, Captain.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Tony. Good morning, Ebenezer. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I just want to confirm if you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Loud and clear.
Morning, Captain Eddie.
Captain Musa, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear. I can hear you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll just kick off in the next 8 minutes as we wait for others to join in.
Very busy today.
Okay, sir.
Ebenezer, are you talking to me or are you talking to Tony?
Sir, I'm talking to you. Your day is going to be very busy.
Believe me, I've already had a 3 hours morning with the management of NCA. After this, I'm running to PTF. After that, I'm running to National Assembly. I'm having a meeting with my minister. Then after that, I have the all stakeholders meeting. So it's just an ordinary day in the office. No big.
It's quite a busy period, and I really appreciate your time, taking off time to join us at this webinar.
I won't miss it joining my friends, Captain Kibehi, Simon, Aloti, and all others. They're all my buddies, so I won't miss it for anything.
Captain Gilbert, are you here? Can you hear me? Captain Gilbert? Jack, a very warm welcome to you today. Thank you.
Good morning, all.
Thank you for
Good
joining
afternoon.
Yes, good morning.
Karibu.
Asante. Okay, can I please request that we mute our mics, please, except for when you're speaking, then you'll be unmuted, so we can have some decorum during the meeting. Thank you very much. We'll be kicking off in exactly 2 minutes 12 sharp. Captain Gilbert Kibe, can you hear me? Are you on? DG Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, sir, are you on? Can you hear me? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome all the Director Generals who are panelists on this webinar, which is looking at civil aviation regulations across Africa in the face of pandemic. Okay. Please, can I mute our mics? Hello. Hello, everyone. Please, can we have some ground rule? Can I advise that we mute our mics? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you all hear me, sir? Good afternoon, madam. Good afternoon, sirs. I want to welcome all of us to.
We can hear you.
Fantastic. I just wanted to cross-check that it's clear from your end as well as mine. I want to welcome everyone to this webinar, looking at civil aviation regulations across Africa, and our panelists today are Director Generals of Civil Aviation Authorities across some African countries, which is, one of them is Mrs. Poppy Koza, who's the DG of South African Civil Aviation Authority. She'll be joining us shortly. We also have Captain Musa Nuhu, who's the DG of Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. We have Captain Gilbert Kibe, who's the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority DG, and Mr. Simon Alate, who is the Director General of Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Fortunately, they had to go for a board meeting this morning, Governing Council board meeting, and is ably represented by Daniel Aqua, who is the Director of Safety at GCA. My name is Tony Okachuku. I'm the CEO, Publisher CEO Aviators Africa. We are a media, PR, and marketing company that services the aviation sector across Africa. On our 10th anniversary, we launched the African Leadership CEO Forum, which seeks to get the top management in the aviation industry together to discuss the challenges that the sector in Africa faces and proper solutions with actionable plans. This was ongoing prior to COVID-19. But when COVID-19 hit us, we had to devise ways to make our meetings go virtual, to continue in the process of pushing the industry forward, as we are passionate about aviation development in Africa, which is at the core of what Aviators Africa does. Without taking much of your time, I would like us to go directly into the discourse of the day, because I appreciate the time that the Director Generals have taken to be with us at this point in time, which is very crucial as they're handling so many issues at a time. And also want to appreciate participants from all over. So Ms. Poppy will be joining us shortly. I'll just go directly to Captain Musa Nuhu, who I'll be posing the first question to. I had to amend some of the questions as developments were just coming on every day across Africa with the relaxation of the lockdowns. So, Captain Musa, the Minister of Aviation announced on its sister handle yesterday that domestic flights will resume on the 8th of July starting with Lagos and Abuja airports, while others will follow thereafter. Can you give us the reason why there is this spacing as to the airports? And also, before now, on the flip side, some private jet companies were banned from commercial operations. Can you kind of throw light on this for us and put us on the same page as to why the opening is being staggered across airports and what the protocols are as of today?
Thank you very much, Tony, and thank you, everybody, my dear fellow DJs, former DJs, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the honor to participate in this forum. We have 54 DJs in Africa, just about 4 or 5 Africa. So we are privileged to be here. Yes, the Honorable of Minister announced the opening of the airports of the aviation industry starting on Wednesday, the 8th of July, phased in. You must agree with me, Tony, we are in very difficult circumstances. Nobody has ever planned for this. Nobody has been trained for this. The work we did before even IQ came up with the card, we're thinking on our feet as we're moving. The system has been shut down for approximately 3 months or just a little bit. And there are a lot of procedures and protocols that need to be put in place to ensure and organize a safe, secure, and efficient restart of the industry. There are 3 main issues right here. We have the technical matters such as the airworthiness of the aircraft, pilot recent proficiency, aviation security matters, management matters, and so on and so forth. The other part, COVID-19, that's where we are. For this protocol 19.
Hello.
Please, can we mute our mics, please? Please, can we mute our mics, please? Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
Mimi niko kwa mkutano wa madijis hapa.
Tony, somebody's talking. It's going to be interrupting me.
Can we please unmute our mics, please, and so we can have some decorum in the house, please?
So, Tony, much on the health protocols, COVID-19, a lot of protocols have been developed in conjunction with the World Health Organization, acute cut document, AFCAC, African Union, called health authorities to develop these protocols that will be that will throughout the aviation ecosystem. And the first part and the significant is the airports. This is the first contact of the passenger, contact of the drop.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, please, if you are just joining us, please, can you mute your mic, please? You're interfering with the discourse. I appreciate if we can all mute our mics, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's the first physical contact between the passengers, and the aviation system. And that is why we're going to do a lot of filtering of the passengers based health laws, based on security, based on a lot of things. So we really need to get the air path. We need to get the airport part of the process. We need to get it right from the word go. If not, then whatever we miss is going to be transferred into the aircraft. And you agree with me, you don't want anything, whether it's health matters, whether it's security, whether it's safety to the aircraft, to bring up at that 5,000 feet over. So that's why the airport process is very, very critical. Part of this issue of financial incentives, people see to that, the financial incentives to the entire aviation ecosystem. And I'm sure DGs will agree with me, the civil aviation authorities too are suffering much as the airlines and other members of the aviation system. We only get our funds. Most of us get our funds when the system is flying and when they're available. So this financial relief from the various government and also through the AU Commission has recommended that significant financial assistance to the industry, because the aviation industry is a very critical component of economics. We make aviation and we the connections for on the issue of the phased opening of the industry in Nigeria. There are many factors. Nigeria is a big country. People, we have about 30 airports, several airlines operating. So our risk factors are higher than most African countries. And we have to understand the entire space shut down. We are restarting. There is no single civil aviation authority that is equipped or resourced to start an entire system from scratch and just open the at the go. We do not have enough inspectors. We neither have enough resources to open the whole system at the go. To do otherwise, it's going to be absolute chaos. So if the tap is shut, in order not to have water spilling all over us, we'll have to open the tap gradually. And don't forget, we are now using a lot of health protocols that the aviation industry has implemented. We have done all we need to do. The micans, the social distances, health checks, security checks, and everything. But traveling public has never had to go through this kind of rigorous checks. So we have to gradually and see how things go, so that if there are mistakes or gaps in the system, we can fix them. So we have to open it. The whole of opening gradually is to be able to control and manage whatever comes. People have flown in a long time. People are ready to fly, and if you just open everything, you have chaos. So we really, it's critical we manage. We're able to manage it gradually. We have finite number of resources. We have a number of, especially in terms of personnel that will manage the system. The system was already moving. It's okay to get over that initial, the inertia at the very beginning. It needs a lot of energy. It needs a lot of resources. So we consume all energy limited and resource to get over that inertia, get the system, manage it, then gradually we'll be adding more airports, more stations, more airlines into the system. And what we have done, we have given protocols that each and every sector of the industry to comply with. And it was all different functions, both technical functions, financial area, also the health protocols, and will only authorize only those that have met this requirement to get back the system, because it's to do otherwise will be injustice to the travel public. You never want to start a system that you start having problems, aircraft safety problem, you have incidents or accidents, or you allow aviation to become a vector for the spread of COVID-19. If any nation, if any system does that, the government will come to them and shut them down. And once it gets shut down, it's absolute disaster for all of us. Many service providers will not survive that second. The restart has to be a very controlled process. Nobody is used to, you shut down we've shut down airports here and there, but not the entire ecosystem. Shut down the airports, the airlines, everybody. So I'm sure you understand the people. We have to go in a very organized and controlled manner. That's for the restart, phase start of the restart. And by the way, it's not going to take us very long. Within a week, we start, a couple of more airports will be added, as we go, a couple of more. But if we have problems, we'll have difficulties, we'll have to wait with those number of airports that have been open until and resolve that issue before we further start expanding. On the issue of the ban on private flights or private operators to operate charter flights, it's a fairly straightforward one. Each regulator has industries. In America, you have the Part 91, which is a private ownership. You have the Part 135, which is a commercial ownership. And the requirements for private operators and commercial operators are quite different, from pilot training, from aircraft requirements, through maintenance. They are significantly different. When I go for sim, when I was flying for a private company, it was so much easier to sim training. But when I was flying for commercial entity, when I go for sim, the requirements are much tougher, the standards are much higher, because now you're dealing with the public. The risk factors are much higher and they must be mitigated. So also on the maintenance and other requirements. So in Nigeria, we have what you call the PNCF, Permit for National Flight. It's a much easier process. Then we have for the commercial operators, you can get your AOC as a commercial operator. The requirements are much tougher, much stringent. Also, if you are foreign registered aircraft, we have what they call OPSPECs per G, and you must come from the lessor of that foreign registered aircraft must have an AOC to come and list it on the OPSPECs of a Nigerian AOC. So you have AOC talking to AOC, and the importance of this is issues of operational control and maintenance control. You don't want to have somebody on your AOC, you the AOC holder, you don't have the slightest idea what that aircraft was flying over. So because of this, there has been abuse of this, especially during this period of shutdown. In Nigeria, we allowed some essential flights, emergency flights, and some cargo flights to come in for supplies and medvac and all this. Apparently, some of the private operators took advantage of that and performing commercial operations, which they were neither authorized nor approved to do. And as a Civil Aviation Regulatory, we cannot pretend we don't know what is happening, because if something comes up, unfortunate accident or incident, investigations might uncover this, and the Civil Aviation Regulatory will be found negligent in implementing its safety oversight functions as mandated by the Civil Aviation Act that give us that from which we derive our powers and authorities to do oversight of our industry. I hope I've answered your first two questions. My apology for taking so much.
Thank you very much, DG. You've kind of extensively covered most of what you're doing this period, and I really appreciate it, and we're going to dig down deeper. Thank you for also clarifying the ban on private jet, because there has been so much information flying up and down. It was better to hear it from the authorities as to what is being done. I'd like to go to Mr. Daniel Aqua, who is representing Mr. Simon Alote. Ghana was the first country to resume domestic operations during the lockdowns and during this period of COVID-19 pandemic. Tell us how you came about taking this proactive step and how you have been sustaining it so far.
Yes, good morning, Tony. Thank you for organizing this meeting. And I would like to say good morning to cherished listeners and participants. Okay. You all agree with me that air travel is the most efficient and preferred way and safest means of travel by everybody. So the shutdown kind of actually pinned people down. They were traveling, though, but most were craving for a resumption of flights. Yeah, so the Civil Aviation, the airport authority, and the medical services all had to come together and form some kind of task force and work assiduously towards it. We had to look at some of the WHO protocols, advice. We look at other protocols that by IATA. We also looked at some recommendations by the ECOWAS Council of Ministers. In fact, a lot, ACI and so on, various publications, reports, put everything together and work very hard towards it. Putting in place the necessary social distancing, how to sanitize, how to disinfect aircraft, social distancing aircraft, and a lot was done. We even asked the airlines to come out with their own COVID-19 management protocols within the aircraft. And with all these and the various teams and agencies, especially the Ghana Health Service, because this COVID-19 is more of a medical issue than an aeronautical or let's say a safety or security issue. So medical team had to train people, especially Accra International Airport. We already had the port health, so it wasn't much of a problem. The domestic airports, because they are not international, they didn't have port health. But the Ghana Health Service had to train personnel and send them there. And even to the that we have private airports for the mining companies, the Civil Aviation Authority had to insist that the port health also goes there, train some people to match some of these protocols for both departing and then arriving passengers, even though the mining companies had their own protocols as well. But we made sure there's still presence of port health in some of these private airports. So far, 2 airports have been to operate. 2 of these private airports have been cleared to operate, so including the state ones. So basically, this is what Ghana did and also approved of the COVID-19 management protocols by the individual domestic airlines. So in brief, that is what Ghana is trying to resume domestic operations.
Thank you very much. So have you had any challenges so far? How have you been sustaining it? Because we are the first to start. Some other countries are just opening up gradually. From around the world, it was from yesterday, most countries opened up. So have you been sustaining yours so far? Have you had any challenges?
No, we haven't had any challenges so far, because right from the onset, involved all the stakeholders, including the airlines, in the planning, even like I said, asking them, apart from what protocols were in the terminal, asking the airlines also to come out with their own protocols at the drawing board in sanitizing the handrails, sanitizing the aircraft after every landing or turnaround period. So all stakeholders haven't had any challenges so far. And yes, also with even security, to the aviation security rules. So Ghana had a policy of full pat down for passengers, whether going through scanner or not. But because of the spread through contact, we had to or stop the pat down, but rather every passenger goes through the scanners. If you have to come back, empty your pockets, remove your belt, go through again, be still back and get rid of whatever is on your body until you are cleared, instead of the additional pat down, hands pat down by the security, aviation security personnel. So far we haven't had any challenges. Everything is running or operating smoothly in Ghana.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. I'd like to go over to Captain Gilbert Kebe. So there has been operating inspections being done at the major airports in Kenya. Can you tell us your level of readiness for restart? Captain Gilbert?
Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, my microphone was not unmuted. So Tony, it's here for inviting me. I'm happy to see all the participants who are here. Also, in particular, Captain Musa Nuhu, my brother from Nigeria, who is a part of the panel, and our friend Daniel from Ghana. Waiting to see Poppy from Suka if she will be joining us. But thank you for this invitation. With regard to our readiness for going back into aviation, yes, from the middle of March, we had put a suspension on all international and domestic air travel. And up until this moment, we haven't eased restrictions yet. However, we have been very busy at work trying to head for the resumption of these services. I'm happy to report that after having gone through several processes, we've created a multi-agency team to come up with protocols that we use to restart the aviation business. So having completed that just over a week ago, we came up with a 21-page document on protocols to be used for resumption of air services. And that is a guide for the airport and all the airport operators who are within, that we have a COVID-free aviation system. So that means that from the time you enter the airport, you go all the processes to when you board the airplane. We would like to ensure that there is no of you catching or transmitting the coronavirus. So happy to report that we are now ready. And the day before yesterday, we did a tour of our main international airport, the Kenyatta Airport in Nairobi, with our Minister of Sport and our multi-agency team that included the airline, the airport authority, security, immigration, sport health, everybody combined. We went through the airport and we said, yes, this airport is ready. Today, as we speak, another 3 international airports are being acted by a high-level team to ensure about our readiness for some operations. So we're going to Mombasa, which is our city at our coast, Kisumu, which is our airport at Lake Victoria, and Eldoret International Airport, which is inland. So we shall get a report this evening, and then tomorrow we send the report over to the Minister for Transport, and if everybody is satisfied, we'll say, yes, Kenya is ready to resume aviation activities, initially for domestic, then thereafter regional, and then international. That is where we are at the moment, Tony.
Thank you very much, Captain Gilbert. I would like to appreciate Mrs. Poppy Kosa, who just joined us. Mrs. Poppy, if you are ready, I'll just come to you now and ask you some questions. What are the safety regulation protocols were adopted? As we know, you were working, the Civil Aviation Authority was working in collaboration with Airport Company of South Africa to make sure that travel is safe and well regulated. So how did you achieve this working with the airport? Because I know AXA was very much in hand to collaborate with you. Can you shed light on how you achieved the safety protocols?
Good afternoon, Tony. Good afternoon to the DGs and the participants. Firstly, I must apologize for being delayed. I had an emergency which was unavoidable, as I did explain to you. But to answer your question, so we do have industry forums chaired by the South African Civil Aviation Authority. We have the captains of the industry forum, we have the industry liaison forum, and so on. So when, and of course, you would appreciate that we were on hard lockdown since about the 27th of March 2020. Borders closed, no aviation activity at all. As soon as the government introduced various levels in terms of the lockdown, limited domestic air travel was then under level 3. We didn't wait for government to pronounce before we got ourselves ready to resume operations. So through the forums that I had indicated earlier, particularly the captains of the industry, which is comprised of all sectors within the industry, we as the Civil Aviation Authority that convened a series of meetings to plan for a restart. Of course, we relied heavily on the guidance we're receiving from the WHO, our Department of Health, the Department of Transport, but equally from the industry international bodies such as ICAO, IATA, and so on. And we were very active in terms of engagement. Even at some point, our own ICAO regional body had arranged a meeting, a series of meetings which we have been party to. So a number of guidance, or rather, yeah, there was so much guidance that we were receiving from all these stakeholders that I've indicated. We then had a series of discussions with government. Of course, under the disaster management, as it was declared in South Africa, there were a number of regulations that were passed, which for all of us, including the aviation sector, had to follow. Based on those regulations, we then looked at our own uniqueness in terms of aviation. And then we said, given all the guidance that we have from WHO, from Department of Health, from ICAO, CAT, and so on, what would then make sense for our own environment, particularly because government had indicated that we would firstly open domestic travel, but on a limited basis. Collectively with the industry, with the airport operators, with the airlines, with relevant government departments, such as Port Health, and everybody else within the value chain, we had our series of discussions which culminated into a number of guidelines, which we then developed. We then collaborated with the ministry in terms of what would be suitable for our context to be published by the minister together with the guidelines. And then we worked with the industry, particularly our aviation medical department, the technical division, in terms of assisting the airports to comply, as well as the airlines, to comply with the regulations, directions, and the guidelines. I must indicate that it was quite an interesting learning curve for all of us, because as our president would say, we had entered uncharted territory, which meant that we all had to learn together and walk, the path together without leaving any stakeholder behind. So we had a very good collaboration from the regulatory authority, which is us, who was, by the way, given a responsibility to oversee and monitor the compliance and give approvals to the operators as soon as they get ready. So it was quite a process, going through the guidelines, assisting the airport to put the standard operating procedures in place, which we would ultimately approve. But I must indicate that gradually we started very slow with 4 airports opening first. It was Ouagadougou International Airport, King Shaka, which is in Durban, Cape Town, as well as Lanseria International Airport, which was the first phase in terms of opening a domestic airport. And this was effective from 1 June 2020, and then effectively from yesterday, 1 July, we had another 7 airports opening as well. So in total, we have 7 airports operating, and we have about 6 airlines that are operating already. So yeah, it's been quite a learning curve, which we learned together, we strategized together, which is what assisted us a lot in terms of ensuring that we get to the point. A series of measures that were put in place consistent with the guidelines. I know that in other states, airlines are not operating in full capacity. I'm talking about the passenger sector. But in South Africa, we took a decision to go for 100% full capacity. And that is because of the layered measures or layered approach that we adopted initially. For instance, wearing of mask is law in South Africa, so it is compulsory. You not mask, you can't be granted access anywhere. Secondly, we do temperature screening. As the person enters the terminal building, we had to minimize the entrance point so that we have better control. Social distancing in terms of the floor marking. We had to put perfect screens at the check-in counters so that we minimize the contact between a passenger and the check-in agent. We are encouraging passengers to do self-check-in and get to the airport board, particularly those who don't have luggage. But of course, those who will have luggage, the check-in is now designed to be suited for a contactless approach. Security point, again, we observe social distancing, and we are staggering. At the security checkpoint, as you would know, ordinarily people will queue up in as much as they do queue, but so that we still maintain social distancing, and of course the floor markings are we do sanitization of the luggage carts after each and every use. The sanitizing stations all over the air, and then the boarding equally it is staggered, observing social distancing. Passenger aircraft, they are subjected to sanitization. Aircraft are disinfected before it operates, and yeah, so that is and of course the wearing of masks, as I indicated, is compulsory. If you get sanitized, the meals are pre-packed. The airlines have been told or directed if they want to provide catering, they must do pre-packed meals, and then they put them in front of the seats so that we minimize movement in the cabin. So it's been working fairly well. We have reserved it. Last week we've blocked it off, in fact, so that we are able to isolate any passenger present with symptoms, whether it's COVID related or any other illnesses, because we are not doing testing prior boarding. So over and above the screening and all these other measures that I've indicated, if you do present sick for an aircraft, we are able to isolate you to the last row, which is blocked off. And yeah, of course, the boarding is very controlled. We are using the front and the back to avoid the congestion, and passengers are boarded through the seats. And yeah, so far it's been working very well. The crew, they also do have the protective equipment. It's mandatory that they must have their PPE on. And since we started operating, so far it's been going very well. Of course, the system is perfect, but we are perfecting it as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Poppy. I like the fact that you mentioned the contactless check-in and the operating full capacity in the aircraft, which I understand the aircraft are fitted with HEPA, which help with trapping microbes in the cabin. But one quick question I would like to ask you is, if you're operating at full capacity, I know that flights will gradually come back. They will not be full for operation, as it will be gradual. But in an instance where you have a full cabin and there happen to be a passenger that comes up with symptoms of COVID-19, you have already said that in the cabin, passengers with any kind of symptoms will be isolated to the back to the seats. But if you have a full cabin and a passenger develops symptoms, what do you do in this scenario?
I don't know if I heard your question correctly.
Okay.
So it is Monday.
I'll repeat.
You want to repeat?
So yes. So my question is, there won't be any social distancing or leaving seats out in the cabin in South Africa as you're operating to full capacity. And my question is, in any case where a passenger develops a symptom of COVID-19 and you have a full cabin in the aircraft, how do you isolate this passenger?
So when I say full cabin, but reserving the row empty, so it's low. In as much as we are saying full capacity, but the last row will not be occupied. So not be, in as much as the airline will be selling tickets, but they can't sell the row in the aircraft. So full capacity, but we've reserved the last row completely. We leave it open so that you are able to do as event is a passenger who presents with any type of illness.
Thank you very much, because thank you for the clarity, because it was definitely going to be a scenario that will trump up in the operations, and I thank you that you clarified it, that the last rows of seats will be left empty in case there are situations like this that arise. Thank you very much. I'll go back to Captain Musa.
Yes, of course, maybe I can.
Go ahead.
Yes, sorry, Tony. No, of course, I wanted to mention that one of the considerations by the government, of course, is the HEPA air filters, which are part of the air filtration system of the aircraft. So those, of course, they do come in handy as an extra measure, because the type of aircraft that we operate, a majority of those aircraft, in fact, I think all of them are fitted with the HEPA filters. So that on its own also becomes a good deterrent in terms of assisting to deal with viruses that will be floating or that potentially could be carried by passengers, or that could be in the air, for instance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Cooper, Poppy, for clarifying that. I'd like to go to Captain Musa Nuhu. Earlier on, you mentioned about, of course, everybody's looking at the bodies in the aviation sector, called IATA, ICAO, ACI, AFRA, have all called for government to give bailouts. Is there any kind of bailouts that's going to be coming to the airlines or the agencies, as it were? Is it finalized? Because on the 8th, operations will kick off, and these aircrafts have been, these airlines operators have been with zero revenue for over 3 months, and you could imagine where they're going to get funds to operate and start. So is there any kind of palliative at this time coming from government?
Thank you, Tony. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, I'm in the car with someone somewhere, but I'll stay with you guys as long as I can. Absolutely, that's palliative. So I've been ongoing discussions over the last couple of days with my Minister of Aviation, myself, the airline operators, and the Central Park Governor, and the Federal Minister of Finance. Something is coming up, and very shortly, the Honorable Minister of Aviation will make an announcement. There are various aspects, various types of palliatives. Some might be in the front of support grants. Some are going to be in front of loans, long-term loans at single-digit rates, very low single-digit rates. And it's not only for the airlines, it's for the entire aviation ecosystem. And include even the taxi drivers at the airport, the car hire service at the airport, everything, the ground handlers, the aviation agencies, including Civil Aviation Authority. It's not only the airlines that have lost money, it's the entire ecosystem. I have 90% of my source of revenue. The Civil Aviation Authority, we have lost over 90% of our source of revenue over the last 3 months or so. We are operating basically on our reserves. We're about to flame out. The government has been made aware of that, and the palliatives are coming. I cannot give specifics right now because it's an ongoing process, and the minister will certainly make an announcement. If not today, probably Friday. I'll leave it at that and the issue of palliatives.
Thank you very much, Captain. It's refreshing to know that some kind of palliative will be coming out. I mean, that is what being not knowing whether palliatives to come or not is something that will leave the industry in a chaotic position. But coming from you and reassuring that some kind of palliative will be given to the whole ecosystem is refreshing and assuring. Thank you for that. Mr. Daniel, I'd like to talk about your national carrier, Ghana national carrier. It's still in the works, it's still in the pipeline. Despite COVID-19, you're still going ahead full throttle as to a national carrier. What's the new normal plans you're having going by the present realities? Because I mean, this plan has been on before COVID-19, but COVID-19 have come to disrupt just about everything that and every sector, every workings in every sector. So how are you coping with the national carrier and COVID-19, and how you need to make this operational in this period?
Yes, thank you, Tony. It looks like you've already answered the question for me. As you rightly mentioned, that we are in a new normal, and the COVID-19 has come to disrupt everybody's plan and activity. Yes, just as a new carrier, national carrier has been going through the necessary processes. Everything was based on some assumptions, but now the assumptions have changed. Now you don't have the passengers. Most airports are closed. They are now thinking of reopening gradually. It will take even the traveling public some time to gain that confidence to travel as it used to be or before. So now with the business plan is being reviewed. The business plan for the national airline is being reviewed, say that if this is launched, it's not going to incur losses. So I think it will take a little bit of some time to get this national airline launched. Yeah, thank you, Tony.
Okay, thank you for going straight to the point, as to what you're doing with the national carrier, and I must congratulate you ahead with still going on with the plans. Captain Gilbert, I'd like to come to Kenya. Kenya is known for a tourism destination, and tourism is a major contributor to Kenya's GDP. So what plans are you having to start not just your domestic operations, because most of your tourism receipts from regional and international tourists. So once you open your domestic, what are the plans, to get back on track as to, opening up for international tourism?
Thank you very much, Tony, for that question. Yes, indeed, tourism is a major part of the total traffic that comes into Kenya, and is in fact one of our single largest foreign exchange earner for the country. So because we have no tourism, we are suffering in that area. And then therefore, what we're planning to do, when we resume our operations, we will begin with domestic. And the idea here is to see how well are we doing in handling small numbers of traffic between our domestic routes. Because the COVID prevention protocols have demanded that we need to do so much extra that we didn't used to do before. For instance, thermal screening or temperature gun screening. We found out that it takes about 20 to 30 seconds to screen temperature of one person. So if you have 300 people, you screen the temperature, you can see it will take time to do that. Therefore, it means that we've had to look at, whereas we used to allow to arrive at the airport for a domestic flight, we're saying now you will arrive at least 2 hours before. We begin international operations, instead of 3 hours before, looking at 4 hours arriving before. Now that will create a backlog of people. And with the onset of physical distancing, meters, depending on where it is that you are, you get the challenge in how we're going to handle flow of people traffic. So in our domestic operation, we want to change that 30 seconds or 40 seconds temperature screening to 20 seconds, so that we can have a faster throughput or flow of people. So we need a period to experiment. How long is it going to take to fill a 100-seat airplane? How long will it take to fill a 300-seat airplane? So those protocols have given us the guidance that we need to do that. And then therefore that is a challenge. And that's why we have to start with the domestic first before we consider going into tourism. So this protocol, which we have developed, which we have used the ICAO, Council Aviation Recovery Task Force, as one of our primary documents. We've also used the IATA as well, and many other protocols that have been proposed, but the CAT document is one that has helped us the most. And therefore, therein lies our strategy on how we're going to get our tourism going again. But that flow has to be efficient and speedy while still following the protocol of COVID prevention. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, may I add, are you putting in the protocol of social distancing in the aircraft, or is it in full capacity like how South Africa is doing?
Yeah, in the aircraft, there will be no social distancing. As my colleague DG South Africa CA has said, our protocol determines that a certain number of seats will be left free or unsold in case a person develops COVID symptoms on board an aircraft. So it depends on the seat capacity of the airplane. If it's a 100-seater, maybe you want to leave 2 seats free. If it's a 300-seater, maybe you want to leave an entire row of 6 seats free. So, and because of the HEPA filters that Poppy also mentioned, the aircraft, being in an aircraft itself is a much safer environment than at the airport. And then therefore you don't need that social distancing the way we know it as you would need it outside an airport environment.
Hello, Captain. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, I can
hear you. Okay, thank you for just adding that to clarify as well. So now we know that South Africa and Kenya are not doing social distancing in the aircraft. I'd like to go to Ms. Poppy. Since the confidence of air travelers are just at the barest minimum, we've seen a spike in the Western Cape. How would this be managed as going by the airlines that fly into these regions? I know the safety protocols have been put in place across board, across the 7 airports, like you rightly mentioned. But in this area where you have spike and have high volume of cases of COVID-19, how are you managing the airlines that fly in there? Are there any other extra layered approaches to the protocols? Mrs. Poppy?
Oh, I apologize. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Yes, you are absolutely correct that we have seen a spike in the Western Cape particularly. But it is our view that the moving target, it might be the Western Cape now that seems to be the epicenter in South Africa. Equally, we are seeing a movement in the numbers. So the Western Cape may have quite a number of infections. The Western Cape may be so well in terms of number of recovers. And you may find that Gauteng, for instance, with a lesser number of infections, but a slow rate in terms of recoveries. So we're dealing with a moving target. However, it is our view that the measures put in place irrespective of the rate province, it doesn't necessarily change, rather us from the additional measures, because as I did indicate that we will do a risk assessment in terms of what would make sense for civil aviation, what would make in terms of ensuring that the passengers who board our aircraft, in fact, have gone through a particular set of measures to make sure with the transmission of a virus from one area to another. But it's all we do from an aviation, and bear in mind that it's not only civil aviation that is operating. We do have the mode of transport that are doing likewise for a number of reasons. In our case, the limited domestic air travel is not open for labor, for instance. So essential travel, for instance, if you are moving houses or you're relocating from one province to another, if you have to move your kids from one province to another. But by and large, business travel is the one that we've seen to be quite significant in terms of the movement. So I believe that perhaps when at travel, that is when we may have an appetite of readjusting the measures if a necessity. And remember that when we take all these decisions, we take these decisions together with the health practitioners, the people who are dealing with COVID-19 issues on a daily basis, and then from a risk point of view, we then weigh as to do we adjust or don't we adjust. Even if we were to adjust, how far must we go in adjusting our measures? So I think the message that I'm trying to relay is that everything that we are doing is risk-based, and we ensure that, of course, we collaborate and consult with all social partners who must give the assurance even to the flying public that indeed the measures that you've put in place, they are sufficient to offer the protection that we would want to offer to our passengers. One thing that we have not fooled ourselves with is that coronavirus is not fully understood. What we know is what we know, but there's new studies on an ongoing basis. So to have a silver bullet approach is something that we don't have, which is why we've resorted to a layered approach, so that at each interval or a step-by-step kind of a process that will ensure that we try as much as we can to minimize. One of the discussions that we were having, somebody was saying, yes, you are talking about HEPA filters, for instance, but we do know that coronavirus, according to the studies as we know them now, I know that the WHO is also looking at whether coronavirus is an airborne disease or not, or an airborne virus or not. So things are changing on an ongoing basis. And based on the information at our disposal, we then come up with measures that we believe will be robust enough to deal with a situation at that point in time. However, we know very well that we will be adjusting our measures as things progress, as things change, as new information come to the fore, and so on. We're dealing with an enemy that we can't see, an enemy that has really disrupted us in a manner that is unprecedented. And of course, we've got to continue to learn and adjust. As I was saying now, in South Africa, Cape Town, for instance, or the Western Cape is the epicenter of coronavirus in South Africa. But we are seeing other provinces recording more infections on a daily basis. So it's making us to think on our toes and to adjust our approaches on an ongoing basis. One of the things that the government has indicated is that, yes, we are now on level 3 in terms of the risk-adjusted approach, but government can equally turn around tomorrow and say we go back to hard lockdown, which is level 5. So changing as things progress. And what is important for us, we think that we are advocating is that let's walk the journey together. Let's learn together and dealing with what we are fighting on a daily basis together, so that we can come up with solutions that be best suited for our environment, best suited for our operations. There is a fine balance between opening up economy and preserving lives. The argument is how do you deal with preserving life when there is no livelihood? So it's always a fine balance, which we are trying on an ongoing basis manage, and it's not easy. I hear from my colleagues as well. I hear G of Nigeria talking about the issues of funding, because the entire civil aviation industry, just like other industries, is crippled by this unseen enemy. So really, it's a matter of trying to bring this thing along. No perfect system, but we'll continue to try our best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please permit me to still stay with you. I want to quickly ask you the next question. I'm happy to hear what SA is going through, that there are issues with the rescue to bring it back, because SA plays a huge role, in the region. But unfortunately, Airlink is suing SA not to get any business rescue. From a regulatory point of view, as regulator of this airlines and the sector, what is your thought around this? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Tony, I can hear you now, but I struggle to hear your question. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. I think there was a little bit network issue. So I was saying that Airlink is suing SAA not to get any kind of business rescue. And as a regulator, from your perspective, what are your thoughts concerning what is going on with the airlines? Is there any kind of measure to cope with the suing, or how healthy are they looking at both airlines coming into play or not attacking themselves? So from a regulator point of view, what are you doing as to this development?
So South African Airways, of course, this has played out in the courts, and I'm sure perhaps you would have followed again that litigation that was brought by Airlink against South African Airways did not pass the scrutiny of the courts, and therefore it is an issue that Airlink and SAA are dealing with. SAA is reports under a different ministry, so it will be difficult for me to comment further. I do know, as you are aware, Airlink and SAA, they come a long way. They had the business relationship for the longest time, and of course, it is unfortunate that things ended up in courts, because it's our belief that some of these things can be discussed, and alternative solutions can be found. However, they are still our operators, and they are continuing to operate, albeit with challenges, because SAA, as you know, is under business rescue and has been struggling for some time. But government is intervening to try and see if there could be other arrangements that can be made for SAA. So I can't really pronounce any further, safe to say that from a regulatory point of view, we wouldn't want to see a demise of airline, particularly because these two airliners have been doing well. And of course, with challenges of COVID-19, there's been a disruption, even financially. But that the government is capable to try and assist where government, in terms of ensuring that both airlines, they emerge successfully post all these challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that submission. I'd like to go to Captain Musa. Captain, during the simulation at the airports, Abuja and Lagos Airport, we noticed that the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria took procurement of some robots to help with temperature checking and checking procedures. Of course, it is important that one of the good things that COVID-19 has taught us is that we have to innovate. But having said that, there's this issue about contactless check-in and biometric check-in to avoid any issues. So Captain Nuhu, can you tell us more about this?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Tony, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead, Captain.
Okay, I'm in somewhere the internet's not very good. Thank you very much. The issue of contactless checking in is very, very important. The less contact we have, the less probability of transmitting the virus from one person to another. And what we're doing right now is we're encouraging the airlines to encourage their passengers to buy their tickets online and check in online. So when they come to the airport, it's a minimal contact with the airport authorities. On the issue of biometric check-in, we are not there yet. We're working on it, but we're still a couple of months away from having that fully implemented. So what we're trying to do now is to ensure that most of the check-in processes are done online. So when you come to the airport, there's very, very minimal contact with the airline staff and others. And at this point, I just want to make a point. My colleague, the DG of South Africa, my good friend and sister, Kofi, made a very, very important comment. The whole idea is to find a fine balance between the well-being of the economy and the health of the people. We must have, it's a very difficult process, but we must get that balance. To go either way is going to be disastrous, either economically or the spread of the virus is going to, we're going to spread the virus to the point of beyond containment. So we must, it's important, we must follow that science guidelines. And that's what we are all trying to do. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, DG. I'll just quickly move on to Captain Gilbert. Sorry, I'll move on to Mr. Daniel. I know it's not logical in this sense, but I'll just put it anyway. Because you started operations before most of the African countries, the thinking will be you've mastered the art to some extent and you probably want to join other nations to open for international operations. Have you made any plans towards that, or you're still trying to weather the storm?
Thank you.
10 minutes.
Please, can you mute your mic, please, if you're not speaking? Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, like we discussed earlier on, Ghana for the past 2 months has been operating domestic, and we've had no HS. It means all the protocols we've put in place have been tried and tested. Now, to move on to the international front, it's a decision of the government, but then government will also need to take an informed decision. So once again, there is a stakeholder meeting of a committee or task force. It involves the Ministry of Aviation. We have Port Health, we have the Ghana Health Service, we have the Ghana Company Limited, we have representatives from the airlines, we have immigration, we have customs, and all the other stakeholders at the airport involved in this program. We've gone quite far. We've developed additional protocols to add on to what we've been doing at domestic, have been tried and tested. And since the COVID-19 is more of a medical problem or issue, yeah, we are relying heavily on the health service. We've looked at, Ghana has looked at a system of tests for COVID before passengers check in. Initially, available technology was that of the PRC, that was the polymerized chain reaction, and that 20 years before. But then Ghana is reliably informed that there's technology, that is the rapid diagnosis test, RTD. And this test takes just about 10, 15 minutes. So we are critically considering that, and I believe very soon Ghana may be able to conclude on those protocols, and then the government will take an informed decision, maybe to open the airport for international flights. But in all this, it cannot be done in isolation because Ghana alone cannot just start international flights. Other airports or other states must also prepare for that. And I know most states would not like to either import or export the COVID-19 around. So just as Ghana is doing, we believe other countries are doing same. And just as it's been advised that maybe we start with domestic, we go regional before international. We are already doing the domestic. We believe very soon, as Bagasso is also, Bagasso and ECOWAS are also advising and spearheading. We believe other states are doing same. We can have an MOU with any other state that comes out with very protocols. So it can be between Ghana and another state initially to start within before we go international. As at now, Ghana has written to the international airlines to develop or come out with their COVID-19 management program, just as we did for our domestic airlines. So we've written to international airlines. We are expecting these protocols to be submitted to the Civil Aviation Authority. It will be reviewed and to be done in collaboration with the Ghana Health Service, just as we did before for the domestic airlines to start operations. So I can confidently say that Ghana has something in the pipeline, but then the government will have to take a decision when the task force has been able to firm all protocols, SOPs, or procedures. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel. I'll quickly move over to Kenya. Captain Gilbert, cargo operations has been vital to the survival of airlines during COVID-19 because, I mean, there are no passenger movement due to the lockdowns. But I don't know of any regulation in different countries as to if commercial operators can reconfigure their aircraft for cargo operations. What is it? What is the state of things in Kenya as to this? Is it a free to configure, or there's a policy in place to encourage commercial operators to configure to cargo, pending when the passenger number starts to come back up?
Thank you very much, Tony, for that question. So, because in the middle of March, when everything went to suspension, airlines began to what they're going to do with their aeroplanes. So some airlines came and approached us, beginning with Kenya Air, which is our main airline, saying that they would wish to begin cargo. Cargo was always exempt from the beginning, together with emergency evacuation, medical, repatriation flights, etc. So we told the airlines, if you can demonstrate to us is that the manufacturer of an aircraft allows in terms of conversion from passenger to look at it, and if it's found acceptable, we shall accept. Therefore, they come up with what airlines actually say about such of passenger to cargo, and in particular in the cabin. And because we knew that they were suffering and they were not flying, we were very, very happy to assist. So we came up with an aeronautical information circular, circular, which we issued to the airlines, told them that to transport cargo in the aircraft passenger compartment during the COVID-19 crisis, these are the steps that you need to do. You need to make references to our regulations. You need to show us documents from the, let's say, the FAA, from the manufacturers like Boeing, Embraer, Bombardier, etc. That if you can do that, we will consider. So when they showed us this information, we said, this looks good. And we therefore created an order for approval of the transport of cargo in aircraft passenger compartments during the COVID crisis. The order is a technical guidance material, or TGM, on how this is done. So the airlines presented their program. This is how we shall be able to fly cargo in this passenger cabin based on manufacturer recommendations, and we gave approvals. So we were happy to do that because it really helped them to be able to sustain themselves in a way. It's not really the best, but at least they've managed to get some income that is going. So it is something that we have supported, in addition to the other measures where we're giving exemptions and extensions for various licenses, certificates, and other operating permissions. Yeah, so that is our attitude towards it. It is approved in Kenya.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gilbert. So this show will help augment the sufferings of airlines. I mean, depending when the passenger numbers increase, as the cargo operations can be what airlines can leverage on. Thank you very much. I'll go to Ms. Poppy. In Africa, unfortunately, pre-COVID-19, airlines have not been in a very profitable state. Be it national carriers, be it privately owned, they were just permits me to use the word managing and just going through the day. But COVID-19 came and gave them a hard hit and exposed everything on their financial status, which post-COVID-19, if there are no bailouts from governments, some airlines might not be able to come back. But one thing though is that in the past, when airlines are being given bailouts, some gets diverted due to lack of corporate governance, some implementation are not follow through the regulators, and some just slip through the cracks. Now COVID-19 has come, there's another renewed call for bailout across board. How are we going to make sure from the regulatory point of view that this bailout will go to serve the airlines as to what they are being used for and not diverted or having any due interference, so that the airlines can actually be sustainable post-COVID-19?
Thanks, Tony. This is a very loaded and difficult question, I must confess. I'm saying so because you are spot on. It's not COVID-19 that has made, it's not COVID-19 alone, rather, that has made many African airlines to be unprofitable. There's been other structural challenges, that if we don't address them now, will continue even post COVID-19. My sense is that COVID-19 is not going to, I'm very optimistic that COVID-19 is not going to be with us for a very, very long time. What will remain perhaps will be the remnants or the damages that COVID-19 would have made, which we would have to recover from. However, as you've indicated, our problems did not start COVID-19. There's been a number of structural challenges or issues that African airlines had been faced with, which is why the introduction of the Yamoussoukro decisions and declarations and the SATAM, of course, had to come, into play so that they all could be some form of factors that would try and assist our airlines to profitability. So my sense is that there's a lot of investment, the resetting of patterns, a conversation, a robust conversation, but equally because you can have all these beautiful agreements and coming to the fore, and all of us become signatories in terms of the African skies and so on. But my sense is that political will is that we lack by and large. And I think unfairly and the magnitude of our problems as an African context, we try to balance too many things at the same time. Governments, and this is my view, would see aviation as an elite type of, it's not necessarily a primary need or requirement because they're struggling to balance out the socio-economic issues, health, education, poverty, unemployment, and so on. And then you start now saying, build an airport and let's, introduce or come up with an airline, for instance. In some instances, I think there's a lot of balancing that that would also be required. And that balancing can only happen if we have sufficient political will from the decision makers. The issue of bailouts, you've just indicated that sometimes governments would bail out. And I'm saying so because we're also seeing some of what you were talking about in South Africa too. South African Airways is a classic example where government has been bailing out an airline. Although our government has invested so much in aviation, be it infrastructure and so on, but we still have our national carrier which is struggling, and that is a known fact. So what is it that we are not getting right? It wasn't the case. I mean, South African Airways was started the business rescue process back in November, for instance. Some other airlines have been struggling in the African continent to a point of demise, where they've closed doors completely. So I think a discussion is far bigger than just coming together and sign agreements and decide on this. I don't know what more. There's a lot that still needs to be done in order for us to get to a point of profitability by our own airlines. There's definitely potential in Africa, but it's the potential that I don't think all of us have realized, and the potential of civil aviation in the economies of our own countries. So I believe that there are certain discussions that we must confront, because sometimes we go to these meetings and we make each other feel good and not maybe touch on the critical issues that we must touch on, and be robust in our discussions. It's a taboo that for me here in South Africa, if I want to fly to Senegal, most likely I need to go to the UAE first, or even Europe to get to another African state. And we need to be having discussions that say, why is it like that? Why are we not? What are we missing? Why is it difficult for us to come together, be of the same mind, and realize the benefits of aviation? And I'm not so sure whether we have gotten to that point where, in fact, we even realize what aviation, the advantages and socioeconomic benefits that would be brought about by civil aviation. I'm afraid that even post-COVID-19, a majority of us are already saying to our governments, airlines are struggling. Yes, governments may bail out, but how sustainable is that if we have not fixed the foundations? And to me, really, it's about going back to the basics, have these very uncomfortable discussions, but also partner with each other, because I get the sense that in as much as we are one continent, but there is some level of division amongst us. And I say so because I would say it even when we go to some of these conferences. We agree on one position, things, and you start wondering, where did we change? Because we're all going together. So there are comfortable discussions that we must have. What divides us? What makes us not to pull towards the same direction as we see in other regions? Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I don't really have a specific answer, but all I'm saying is that we came with the Yamoussoukro decisions, we had declarations, we now have the SATAM, but what value are we deriving from all these instruments? They are there, but what do they mean to us at the end of the day? And from where I sit at this point in time, not much. And there's more that we must do collectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One thing that is a no-brainer is that COVID-19 has brought us to a level of restart. Just like you said, we need to go back to the foundation. And this has afforded an opportunity to look at the brand Africa again as going to civil aviation regulations and how to harmonize, the borders across African countries. I'm going to go to come later on to the AFCAC DG because it mentioned Yamoussoukro and SATAM, and he's here with us. There's no how we can have all this conversation without touching on it. So I'm going to come back to the Secretary General Tefera Mekonnen later on, but quickly, we have 30 minutes to the end of the webinar. Quickly go to Captain Musa Nuhu to tell us the position of Nigeria on the middle seat social distancing in the aircraft. So already clear that South Africa and Kenya are not doing that in the aircraft, but it's not clear if Nigeria is going to be doing social distancing in the aircraft. Captain Musa, can you quickly shed light on that in under 2 minutes?
Thank you very much, Tony. We are going with the CAT requirement, and the CAT requirement says where social distancing is not feasible, and they specifically mentioned the cabin of aircraft as an example. Other mitigation measures will be put in place. What are these mitigation measures? The use of face masks, the cleaning of the aircrafts during transit, and the continuous cleaning of the toilets and such. And so those are mitigating measures to minimize the possibility of transition of this. As Kenya and South Africa said, it's important to leave seats in the back of the aircraft in case in flight you have somebody who is exhibiting symptoms of COVID. It does not necessarily have to go, but once you exhibit symptoms, it's important you're isolated from the passengers at the back of the cabin. So we are going with the CAT. If the aircraft is full seats. However, when there is space available, the airline can do social distances. But to me, that has a major conflict, because if you are given a seat number and you get sick later, it's based on that seat number. They're going to do contact tracing people within a certain radius of where you're sitting. But if you go to the cabin, because there's space, you are moved from 2A and you're taken to 15A. It creates a problem for contact tracing, because the contact tracing is going to be based on where you sit. So there's a danger to that. And I think it's an oversight. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, Captain. Thank you very much for clearing that out. Just as it has been said here that the virus is a novel one, we're still learning about it, and these protocols will continue to be looked at and modified. Just like you pointed out, it's a very vital issue that has to be looked at as we go on. Thank you very much, sir. I'll go to Mr. Daniel. Mrs. Poppy, I just talked about, the difficulty we'll face around having to make sure that these airlines are sustainable, they are healthy, their workings and their internal, and there are no interferences, there's political willpower. But I'd like to ask you if there's any kind of corporate governance structure for airlines in Ghana.
Yes, thank you, Tony. Yes, certainly. The Ghana Companies Code comes out with that kind of requirement. It's not only for airlines, for all companies. And specifically, you see this in the 1963 Act, that is Act 179, which has been revised as Act 992 of 2019. So right from registering a company, there is that requirement. But then when you come back to the civil aviation to actually go through the processes of establishing the airline, we have the Economic Regulation Department, and as part of submitting your business plan and so on and so forth, this is also a requirement over there. And then when you come over with having your economic license, coming over to the Safety Regulation Department to try through the certification process, we use the ICAO 5-phase certification process of the world now, and there are certain key management positions that must be in place. This can be clearly seen in the Ghana Civil directives. That is Part 9.2.2.2, and then you have additional requirements when you come to the implementing standards. You have those positions, but now coming back to the corporate governance itself, yes, after establishing the airlines, Ghanaian registered airlines, are supposed to submit monthly management and reports. So the Economic Regulation Department checks that. Okay, there's also an economic surveillance manual program in place, which has been signed by the Director General. Okay, And in this manual, it's used to carry out the surveillance on the airlines as well. So apart from submitting a monthly management and operational reports, which through that aviation will be able to determine whether you are having your necessary board meetings, implementing your board decisions, key management personnel may be accountable, manager, and so on and so forth, and then looking also at the other aspects of the organogram, whether they're actually, and that there's no conflict of interest, such as maybe you're having your quality director or manager reporting to director for maintenance, which is not proper. It means there will be some of conflict of monthly management operational reports. We're able to determine that everything is in place. And then the Civil Aviation Authority also visits the airlines as part of the requirement of renewing your air carrier license, that's your economic license, as well as your AOC. We carry out quarterly and then inspections every quarter, every 6 months, and every year in order to renew your air carrier license as well as the air operator certificate. So we kind of monitor through some of these inspections. But I would say at this point that the Civil Aviation Authority does not micromanage lines. Yeah, that company from there is that provision, and then going through the certification process both for the economic line and for the AOC, and we look at structures being in the airline. Thank you.
Very much for the elaborate explanation. So what I want to got from what you explained extensively is that there is corporate governance structure in the sector to make sure that these airlines are looked after. Mr. Simon told me earlier on that that management of airlines aspire to submit quarterly reports as to how the operations are going. That way you can checkmate, what they're going through. Thank you very much. I'll go to Captain Kibe. Captain, just like you mentioned before now about the protocol document that KCA brought up recently, and Mr. Daniel, during his speech, was saying that COVID-19 is more of a health issue rather than safety. So that brings me to my question. In the cabin, crew members are required to wear face masks or face shield or PPE, as it were, for safety protocols. But how about as a regulator, have you also looked at emergency situation or simulated emergency situation that could arise? This we have PPE and the mask, how would they interfere with emergency evacuations? Have this been put into cognizance in the case of safety? I'm not talking about COVID now. COVID have brought about new normal, but in case of emergency situation, how do we also deal with evacuations?
Thank you very much, Tony. It's true. In the COVID-19 document, as you established ICAO CAT, Council Aviation Recovery Task Force, and this manual on item 313, it says that the use of PE should not impact the ability to carry out normal, abnormal, and emergency safety procedures, such as donning of oxygen masks or fighting procedures, etc. Another thing it says is that a safe when you're on board should highlight to passengers that face coverings should be removed before donning emergency oxygen masks. And that is in case they are needed if the aircraft goes into a decompression when it is airborne. So, Tony, the face mask may impede the oxygen flow in a decompression scenario where crew and passengers will need to use the drop-down masks very quickly. So most aircraft are fitted with HEPA filters, as mentioned before, that already eliminate 99% of germs and bacteria and viruses, and the air changes 20 to 30 times an hour. So in the case of an evacuation, PPEs are not a very huge requirement. They should only be worn as far as it is practical, but to give preference for an evacuation that has to be done as fast as possible within or under 90 seconds. So caution should be taken to minimize injury to passengers or crew or damage of safety equipment during evacuation. So PPEs, face coverings, our personal protective equipment in an emergency situation is not our concern in any way whatsoever. We want to get out of that airplane as fast as possible, as safely as possible, and you're not worried at that time about contracting or spreading the coronavirus. So that is the way that we look at it. And really, even before we will allow the airline to begin those kind of operations, they will need to demonstrate to us as part of a risk assessment that every operator, before the resumption of flights, they should ensure the training of flight crew and cabin crew regarding the use of PPEs for a normal situation, an abnormal situation, and emergency procedures is carried out, and if necessary, to demonstrate it to us. So this will equip all the crew with the necessary skills that are required to handle all the flight scenarios that we can come up with in this environment of COVID and even beyond. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much. Can I quickly add, I mean, I know how apprehensive passengers can be in abnormal situations, for example, decompression, if you will. Now that they will be wearing face masks and there's need for decompression and oxygen mask drops, from the passenger's point of view, are passengers kind of aware of what they are required to do? Is it part of the demo briefings to let passengers know what to do? Because this is not a normal situation. When you already have your face mask on, then you need to carry your drop-down oxygen mask as well. So kind of this coordination and the communication between crew and passengers, is it well communicated so that passengers know what to do per time?
Yes, very clear. We're train operators must brief your passengers on every aspect. In a safety briefing, you're going to inform them that if you use oxygen mask below, remove your face mask and don the oxygen mask. It is going to be a training every person must know. It is no time for PPEs in an emergency, in a deep anything like that. Follow the safety procedures of the airline the way it has always been. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to quickly now go to the DG of AFCAC, Secretary General of AFCAC, Tafura Mekonnen, to help us share his own views about our discussion and the regulations across civil aviation in Africa. But my question to him before he shares his own thoughts will be, the EU just released a list of countries that will be admissible to the EU countries, and most African countries are not on that list. Is there anything that AFCAC is doing? Is there anything that these countries have not met up to? Because I know it is not a fairly balanced approach, as some airlines that have low cases of COVID-19 are not on the list. Some countries that have higher number of COVID-19 cases were admissible. Can you help me answer this question along with your thoughts? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony, for inviting us to take part in this meeting. I would like to send my congratulations to those who have adopted the closures based on their local situations in collaboration with the concerned agencies. This exercise, particularly when I was listening to the 3 DGs, will enhance the confidence of not only the travelers or workers at the airports, but to the public in large, and those states will be receiving African passengers or African Airlines. Before I go directly to the questions posed to me with respect to SATM and also the EU measures, please allow me to highlight some of the high-level task force recommendations. We provided some recommendations for our ministers to include the aviation sector, including the civil aviation regulatory organizations on their relief measures. We have also called upon the high-level government authorities to consider the aviation industry and the regulators in their financial and economic package. As you may recall, these recommendations were adopted initially by the subgroup of ministers, and it was brought to the attention of all ministers. As we were developing the high-level task force, this task force was established through the coordination of the African Union Commission. The task force report and the recommendations have been circulated to all ministers of foreign affairs and ministers responsible for civil aviation. And as you might have observed, we have also circulated to our director generals to receive any feedback. In a few days' time, the Bureau of the Ministers responsible for civil aviation will formally adopt these measures. At this time, we are working with directors of ICAO on how to aggressively work on the awareness programs of the global measures. During the last 6 weeks, we were working with the experts, air transport experts, who are working hardly on how to fast track the implementation of the concrete measures by those states which are party to the single African air transport market. They have come up with a concrete review of the measures which should be taken by a state once signing the solemn commitment. It is our hope that within 2 to 3 weeks' time, the ministerial working group of the SATM will sit and reform. It's time for us to fast track the implementation of the African transport market. As mentioned earlier, airlines are in a difficult situation. Unless we fast track the implementation of the SATM, we'll leave the market to those who have received financial relief, be it from the Europe or the Gulf region. Therefore, we need to enhance collaboration among our African airlines and also to insist to those states to be practical on the solemn commitments made. In a few days' time, we'll have webinars similar to this, but targeting all the 55 director generals to share experiences, because what we have observed so far is that there is a need to collaborate among the director generals to share experiences on the regulatory framework of the restart phase. We are also in coordination with AFRA and other service providers to do same, to have a platform to share their experiences on how to restart. For the relief measures, as I mentioned earlier on, we'll be having 2 meetings at the ministerial level. I will not have much to say on the European Union assessment. As you might have observed, the initial draft had a lot of states, but now the approved one has only indicated very few states from Africa. How they did, what kind of criteria they have used in such kind of assessment is not yet clear to AFCAC. Therefore, I will not be in a position to share my views. Is it targeting the states? Or is it targeting the airlines from those states? It's not yet clear. Is this assessment binding the European Union? Still much to be discussed. With this note, it's my strong belief that those who have attended this meeting will consider the risk-based adjustment on the various measures, continue their engagement on the collaborative decision-making with all the agencies involved in the handling of this pandemic. I think it is time to collaborate more. This is what I would like to say at this moment. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, DG AFCAC. I appreciate your submission. It's because at Aviators Africa, aviation development in Africa was at our core, and we appreciate the fact that later on we are looking to call the 54 DGs of civil aviation authorities across Africa to see how they are coping and their collaborative efforts they are making. I must say that we are quite grateful to be in this picture because we've always known that there has to be some collaborative decision making across Africa, not only civil aviation, but as Brand Africa as a whole. And we're hoping that we will also get hinted when we are having this meeting with the 54 DGs across African countries. Thank you very much to all the participants so far. We'll just be going to post some questions to the panelists that was sent in. The first one I would take, and I would like Captain Kibe to answer this, is coming from Major General Charles Mwanzia, retired. And his question is, how does CAs ensure air operators and airlines enjoying state bailouts and government subsidies compete with others without their government financial support? Please, can you answer this question?
Yes, thank you, Major General Mwanzia. That is a good question. We've heard how the government has come up with, at least the Kenyan government and even some other governments around Africa, have come up with economic stimulus packages and plans. But what I've noted is that they seem to have left out aviation. Aviation does not seem to have featured very highly in many states' economic stimulus recovery packages. And so I asked myself, why is that? And having known that aviation is indeed the single largest enabler of economic growth in any state in the world. So I figured that maybe, perhaps, we have not been forceful enough in our request for assistance by our governments. Or maybe we haven't even gone out to them yet to ask for help. I know the tourism industry has really been forceful, very vocal about getting state support. The agricultural sectors, the manufacturing sectors, business sectors, all those sectors have really been vocal and forceful in their request for economic stimulus packages. And we have seen the result, it has worked. So therefore, I have been advising the aviation community, you need to make some noise about it. You need to go to government and say you require assistance, whether it is the reduction of taxes, reduction in charges, or even financial stimulus we need to do that. So I am working with our industry stakeholders, our Association of Air Operators, who have already written now formally to government requesting for that kind of assistance. So we at KCA, we will assist in that regard because it is in our interest to protect our aviation players because they are our customers and our primary source of revenue. I thank you for the question.
Thank you very much. The next question will be going to Captain Musa Nuhu. A question from Scholar Latonya. She said, given the highly contagious nature of COVID-19, have adequate protocols been put in place in all aspects of the passenger journey? For example, in the baggage hall where there are normally many passengers taking their baggage.
Thank you very much, Tony. A couple of things we're doing to mitigate the baggage claims. First of all, the baggage will be disinfected before they're brought to passengers. We have an automatic system where the baggages will pass through disinfection. And in addition to that, there's physical spacing where you collect your baggage. There are 3 lines, and it's quite wide. And everybody will stop there. You pick your baggage, you leave. The next line pops up and it speaks. They pick their baggage and leave. And in addition to that, we'll do the sequencing of arrival and departures. So to have enough time for people to pick their baggage before the next sets of baggage, the next set of baggage for the next set of flights coming at the different terminals. So basically, these are some of the basic measures we are putting in place to handle that issue of contacting COVID-19 during collection of a baggage. But as soon as we start actual operations, I'm sure we're going to see some areas, some gaps so we're going to work on and make it much better. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you very much, sir. The next question is coming from Todd Lester, and I'll pose it to Mrs. Poppy, and it has to do with unmanned cargo delivery regulations. So the question is, what countries are making progress with unmanned cargo delivery regulations? As he says, there is a high potential in this area.
Can you repeat again, Tony?
Okay, so the question from Todd Lester is, what countries are making progress? In this case, is South Africa making progress with unmanned cargo delivery regulations?
So South Africa, I know, has not has started making amendments to the regulations relating to unmanned aircraft operations. Yeah, so no, at this point in time, no, we have not started. And I doubt very much that we will start in the next few months because we must deal with COVID-19 issues first before we can look at other possibilities. Of course, unmanned aircraft systems, as they're called, or remotely piloted aircraft systems, they present a number of opportunities. However, we need to be mindful of the fact that each technology brings with it benefits, but equally it brings with it some disadvantages that we'll have to look at from a risk-based point of view. Look at the demand, what's in the best interest of our country, and so on. So I cannot say it's not something that will not be considered anytime soon, but right now that is not yet a consideration. So I believe that it's something that we can look at in the very near future. Maybe because there is not too much pressure from the industry as well, which is why we haven't really done much. Of course, there are a lot of benefits from some aerial work, for instance, and so on. But in terms of deliveries, not yet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last question. The last question will go to Mr. Daniel, and this is from Alexis Peltier. Is there any African country here present that present quarantine for aircraft ferries?
you. Kindly repeat the question.
Okay, so in Ghana, let me be specific. Because the question is there any African country present that present quarantine for aircraft ferries? So in case of Ghana, do you require quarantine for anybody wanting to ferry an aircraft?
The answer is yes and no. It depends on how long the aircraft is staying. We have some aircraft coming in for special evacuations, and if the crew, some of them have a very quick turnaround, and they have double crewing, so they just stay on board. For that one, they will not be quarantined. But then those who will be having their rest period here and maybe flying the following day or in a couple of hours, yes, they are quarantined.
Thank you very much. We've been deliberating for the past 2 hours, and just 2 minutes past our scheduled deliberation time. I want to thank all our panelists and all attendees. First of all, I want to go with Mrs. Poppy Koza. I want to say Ngi Abonga, Captain Musanu. I want to say Nagode.
Thank you.
To Mr. Daniel representing Simon Alote, I want to say Medasi. And
thank you.
To Gilbert Kibe, I want to say Asante.
Asante sana.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to greet someone whom I haven't seen in a long time, if you may allow.
Go ahead, please.
Dr. Demuren. I haven't seen him in a long time. Good to see you.
My sister, we're very proud of you. Very proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So very good to see you. Thank you.
Yeah, good to see you all.
Dr. Harold Demore, I want to say special thank you for also having time to join us. We really appreciate, and every other participant that joined us today. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us. And we look forward to working closely with all the DGs at Aviators Africa to see the progresses you're making across African countries. For us, it's Brand Africa. We look at Africa holistically and not in segments, because if we all work and harmonize all our regulations on all our, and of course the SATAM and AFCTA programs, it will be to the benefit of Africa. And I look forward to working closely with all of you to see that Africa moves forward. Thank you again for joining me, and I hope that once again when we call upon you, give us the privilege to hit to our call. Thank you very much, and God bless. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thanks to my colleagues, the DG Kenya, DG Nigeria. Thank you very much, and Ghana, and everyone.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Tony. Appreciate it.
Very much,
Thank you.
everybody. God bless.
God bless. Thank you.
Bye.
Congrats to you all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Dr. Demorin.